Hello everyone, TheAwesomeAlan here, and today I will be personally answering a question that has yet to be answered. World leaders have congregated and debated this subject. Wars have been fought over this very dilemma, an unresolved question that affects citizens from all across the world, a story that parents will tell their children about before bed that will then pass down through generations. Forbidden knowledge that Eve plucked from the tree of knowledge herself in the Garden of Eden. What are the rankings of every Ben 10 alien? I know. Very unique idea for a video. I am the first person to come up with it. I will not hear otherwise. Let's begin. Alright, first up we have Heat Blast, who is basically the mascot of the original series from 2005. He's the first alien that we're introduced to in the entire franchise, and I mean, what's not to love about him? He's made of fire and molten rock, and his powers are incredible and destructive and badass. And also, he's voiced by Steve Blum, which gives him just an edge over most other aliens. So for that alone, S tier. He's not quite godly. I'm saving that specifically for a very few select amount of aliens, but as far as S tier goes, I think Heat Blast is probably going to be the strongest one in that category. Next up, we have Wildmutt, who is kind of like this underrated alien as far as the original series goes. He wasn't used too often, and he has some notable downsides, as in he can't see. He doesn't necessarily have hearing the same way that most other aliens or species do. He has this kind of, not infrared sensor, but this like advanced sense of smell that can detect things around him. It's very unique and very cool. I don't think any other alien really has this kind of thing. But as far as strength goes, he's really just a fighter, and he's not even the best one at that. Very unique, so that makes him a little bit higher than most other aliens that will be in the lower categories, but I think he's a solid B. Next up, we of course have Diamond Head, another original series alien. Now, I'm just gonna go out there and say it. Diamond Head is my favorite alien in the entire franchise. I love him. I love everything about him, down to the uniform, down to the voice, down to his powers, down to his design. I mean, everything is just incredible. And the best part about him is, through every single iteration of the Ben 10 show, through Ben 10, Alien Force, Omniverse, what have you, even the reboot, Diamond Head is always amazing. He is amazing in every interpretation, and I think that alone is reason enough to place him in godly. Next up, we have Accelerate, the OG speedster. Sorry Fast Track, sorry Jet Ray. Accelerate triumphs both in speed, but also powers aside, his design is just way better. He has this really cool alien velociraptor-like look, and he has this black and white uniform that kind of melds into his powers with the face mask that he can activate at will. Usually we see it when he's running around. And then he has a massive tail that can just whack people. I mean, what's not to love about him? I believe it was Diamond Head, Heat Blast, Accelerate, and Forearms as the four most beloved aliens from the original series. It's very easy to see why he gets A tier. Next up, we have Gray Matter, who is probably, in terms of the original series, the most underappreciated alien. I'm not going to say he's the best in the world, but he's definitely underappreciated. He has Ben's smartest transformation, and he belongs to the race of Galvans, which are the smartest species in the universe. Now, I think it's really nice that Ben was given Gray Matter at such a young age, because he's young and immature, and he doesn't really appreciate what Gray Matter can offer. He was always the butt of the joke in the original series, and whenever Ben would want to turn into Forearms, or Heat Blast, or Accelerate, and so on and so forth, he would sometimes get Gray Matter, to the begrudgment of Ben and to the laughter of the audience. But aside from his brains, there's not too much going on for him. His design is nice, but it's not incredible. I'm going to go C. Next up is, of course, Forearms, the Tetraman with 4 arms. Ben's, or at least one of Ben's strongest aliens. I mean, he's great. He's a giant red human with 2 extra arms and 2 extra eyes, and he's really cool. I mean, there's not too much going on with him other than he was definitely one of Ben's favorites when he was a kid. Personally, I didn't love him. I did like him a lot, though. and so he stands right next to Heat Blast in S tier. Stingfly, I think this is another underappreciated alien from the original series, however, not as much as Gray Matter. I know he has a lot of fans. I don't love him in terms of a flying alien, but I prefer him over any other flying alien. I think he has this kind of bug-like alien design that we didn't really see come up too often with other aliens. That makes Stinkfly incredibly unique. So I think B tier is a good place to put him. And I'm looking at that B tier placement. No, he gets an A. He gets an A. I'm overruling my previous decision. Stinkfly is cool, and he has a lot of cool abilities. I mean, he can shoot, like, gunk out of his eye stalks. He can fly really fast. Maybe not as fast as Jet Ray, but he's really cool. He deserves a bit more than B. Stinkfly gets an A. Then we have Ripjaws, who is another underappreciated alien, I think from the franchise as a whole, not just the original series. I think he fits firmly in C tier with Gray Matter. I mean, he's really cool in terms of having like a fish alien. You gotta have a fish alien. You gotta have an underwater alien. And I think he's one of the cooler ones. Although he's really the only one that's specifically suited for underwater combat and traversal. So that makes him, you know, stand out a lot. But he's just not that interesting. So C. Next, of course, is Upgrade, and Upgrade is just so cool. I mean, what's not to like about him? He merges with machines, he upgrades them, he changes them. One cool aspect of him is that he's the first alien in the entire franchise to use Ben's voice as like a supplement to another voice actor. And so it was really cool hearing Ben's voice kind of shine through this alien, which of course makes sense because Upgrade, the galvanic mechamorph, is artificial. He's an artificial alien created by the Galvans, which is Gray Matter species, and I think A tier suits him nicely. He has like optic blasts he can fire out of his eye that also change shape, and the black and white uniform kind of melds well with like this green tech that is flowing throughout his body. He's a solid A. Next up is Ghost Freak, and I think Ghost Freak is very unique for the sake of the story that they told with him. They had Zascare kind of break free from the Omnitrix, and seeing as Ghost Freak was really the first horror alien that Ben received, I think he probably stands above most other kind of creepy or scary aliens, if you could even call them scary. And, you know, as far as like him being a ghost-themed alien, I think his design overall and powers and whatnot were just a little less on the nose than maybe some of the other ones that we got later down the line, which of course was the, you know, mummy, werewolf, Frankenstein, what have you. I think Ghost Freaks is just a little more unique than generic, and for that, A tier. Now we have Cannonbolt, the first alien that Ben received after the original 10. I remember when I was 6 or 7 years old, and Cannonbolt's first episode came on, and I was blown away by the fact that there were more than 10 aliens in the Omnitrix. I mean, that's what they had advertised up until that point. Ben 10. He turns into 10 aliens. All the ads were saying, check him out. He could turn into 10 aliens. And then we get an 11th one, and that was just mind-melting for my little 6 to 7-year-old brain. So, A. Next up is Wildvine. Wildvine is very interesting because, again, he is the 12th alien that Ben unlocks, and, you know, I won't reiterate what I said with Cannonbolt, but that was a big deal at the time. You know, I know there's 62 aliens on this list, but having 12 aliens, I couldn't even fathom it at the time. He's one of Ben's first plant-based aliens, which he'll get a couple other later down the line. However, as far as plant-based aliens go, Wildvine is really cool. He has these like back bombs that he can pluck, like they're almost fruit, and he can like throw them and regrow them. He has this Venus flytrap kind of design that melds into more of like a plant-based like root system in his body, and it's really cool. I really love the blue eyes and little splotches of color that you get throughout the design, specifically on his shoulders and in his eye. I think that's really cool. I wouldn't say he's as cool as some of the other ones. Like the wow factor was really taken by Cannonbolt, and then once Wildvine came out, you really expected, oh, okay, they're really gonna show us more aliens. B tier. Next up, we have Benwolf, or as he's renamed in Omniverse, Blitzwolfer. I've always preferred Benwolf. However, in my upcoming comic, Ben 10 Omnitrix Awakened, I have renamed him to Biowolf. It's plug time. Ben 10 Omnitrix Awakened is a series of redesigns and an upcoming comic series I am creating that continues Ben's adventures after the original series that premiered in 2005. It can be considered a retelling of Alien Force in a way, starting things off with a 15-year-old Ben as he struggles against the impending invasion of Earth by the hybrid, with the story then following him through the years on his way to becoming the hero of heroes, Ben 10,000. Following the original series, the show's Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse were created to continue the story in various ways, adding new aliens, characters, and stories. As a lover of the original show and as someone who grew up with the franchise since its inception, I was saddened and disappointed by the portrayal of certain characters and the directions certain shows went in regards to stories, designs, or overall additions to the franchise. For these reasons, I felt it would be a good opportunity to go back to where it all began, taking a look at what made the original show so special and bringing Ben 10 back to its roots. If you'd like to read the first few pages of the comic or join our community, the Discord link is in the description below along with any of my social media. We've just recently passed 100 members and are growing every day, and I hope to see you there. And now, back to the tier list. I'm not a huge fan of that name change. I know Ben Wolf isn't very creative, and there are many other great names out there, but Blitzwolfer was just a CNN host reworked. I thought Ben Wolf was just a little bit more unique in that sense. I know it's weird to say. It's a bit ironic to say that because Ben Wolf isn't very creative at all. It's just Ben plus Wolf. I like it though. You know, I guess it kind of hits the nostalgia factor for me. And I just really wasn't a fan of Blitzwolfer. I think Omniverse could have chosen a couple other names for him that probably would have been better. But he's really cool as far as a werewolf alien goes. You know, he can split his mouth open and let out this very loud, powerful sonic scream or howl. And that's really interesting. You know, they took it in a very nice direction as far as the typical werewolf goes. He's not very impressive, though. His design from the original series leaves something to be desired. I actually think his Omniverse design is a little bit better in that regard. But I'm going to go with B tier. Next, we have Upchuck, who was actually unlocked through a special code that was administered by Xylene, which was a really interesting spin on, you know, what we knew about the Omnitrix at the time. Having this, you know, brand new character know so much about the Omnitrix and then introduce Upchuck was a really cool moment. But as far as the alien goes, he's a very nice design, and his powers are pretty cool, but he's just eating stuff and then throwing it up as energy blasts. It's not incredible. It's not awful, though, and so I think B tier suits him nicely. Next up, we have Ben Mummy, or as Omniverse calls him, Snarrow. Not a fan of that name, once again. Same thing with Ben Wolf, but it is what it is. Ben Mummy was very underutilized in the original series. I think we only saw Ben turn into him one time, and then we saw Ben 10,000 turn into him one other time, and then even Ben 10,000's older design wasn't changed at all from when he was a kid. And so I feel like Ben Mummy was very underutilized in the original series, although he was a late addition, so maybe that can be, you know, explained for his lack of screen time. He's cool, a little bit more direct than, say, Ghost Freak is, since he's based on Egyptian pharaohs and mummies. He's part of the Halloween trio with Ben Wolf, Ben Mummy, and Ben Victor. I would say he's probably a missed opportunity overall, and then put him in C. Next up, we have Ben Victor, who is just a Frankenstein's monster alien. It's unique, and it looks very nice. It's overall, the design is very pleasing, but again, it's just a Frankenstein's monster alien. Same with Ben Mummy and Ben Wolf. He was renamed in Omniverse to, I believe it was... I can't believe I had to look that up. Frankenstrike. His name was Frankenstrike in Omniverse. That one I like more than the other two renamed aliens. I think Frankenstrike is a pretty nice name. But overall, I don't think he is a very cool alien. I think his powers are outmatched by a lot of other electric aliens that we see later down the line. And as far as the Halloween trio goes, I think he is one of the more on the nose. Maybe not as much as Ben Mummy, but he's a little more on the nose in terms of Frankenstein's monster, which is just a, Earth-based creation, a story. And so having that be a species out there within the universe, it probably sounds better on paper than it was in execution, and for that, C tier. Next up, we have the Yakko Warner alien, Ditto, who is pretty cool in his first appearance. He can split apart into multiple different clones of himself. His clones can all feel damage when one of them is damaged, and so that's like a cool weakness or drawback. But I think overall, he's not very useful, especially towards his later counterpart, Echo Echo. He can duplicate, and he can make snarky remarks as, Yakko Warner. But that's really it, and so for that, C tier. Next up, we have Waybig, who is Ben's largest alien and most physically strong alien, who was, of course, unlocked at the end of Secret of the Omnitrix. I think that was a really cool reward for finishing the movie. I think that his unlocking by Azimuth at the end of the film was just an incredible reveal. And I think that his design overall is pretty cool. I know that he is kind of partially or probably directly based on a Kamen Rider. But as a kid, and even now, I still don't really know what that is. I just saw big, massive alien, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't love him. I still don't love him. So I think B tier is a good place for him now. And then we have iGuy, who I believe also made his first appearance during Secret of the Omnitrix, depending on which DVD you got. I know that there were a couple different versions, one with Accelerate, one with Heat Blast, and then one with iGuy as the intro alien. And I thought, he's really cool. I didn't know where he came from because we never saw Ben unlock him, but I thought he was a pretty neat alien. Very unique in terms of his design. No other alien really has this aesthetic. I don't like how the later iterations just made him a joke alien in terms of constantly giving out eye puns. He never did that in the original series. With what very little screen time he had, I mean, maybe he would have developed that later. Who knows? He didn't in the original series, which is where I liked him more. But I didn't love him, so I think he goes in C. Next up, we have Spitter, who I want to so badly put higher on the tier list. However, we only saw him a handful of times, I think maybe 2 times at most, through Ben 10,000 in the original series. I don't think we ever saw him again in any of the later iterations. And that's unfortunate, because I think Spitter had the potential to be a really cool alien. I know he's not incredibly unique in his powers, but I think his design is very alien in nature, and I think they absolutely nailed that in terms of design. And I would want to give him around B or even a C, but just because of so much of his lack of, appearances in the show, I think I have to give him the first D, unfortunately. Nearing the end of the original series, we have Buzzshock, and Buzzshock was first used by Ben 10,000. He actually first appeared as like a group of aliens that Ben had to fight in his early adventures, and I think he's very memorable for that. And then seeing him reappear again in the Ben 10,000 timeline was really cool. Just adds a little bit of that continuity and makes this alien stand out just a little bit more than, say, Spitter, who we had no prior knowledge to other than his debut. And then I also believe that he does reappear in Omniverse. Ben does turn into Buzzshock a handful of times. I would say that the design sticks very closely to the original aliens that we saw, just with a black and white uniform, which is the staple of all of Ben's aliens, or should I say most of Ben's aliens, because that changes throughout the show. I think a solid C is good enough for him. The last of the original series aliens, Arctiguana. It's very unfortunate that Arctiguana wasn't really used at all throughout Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, because once I saw Arctiguana in the Ben 10,000 episode, I immediately fell in love, because besides fire, ice is my other favorite element, and I thought, hey, the first cold-based alien, that's really cool. I love him. I want to see more of him. And then he kind of just disappeared throughout Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. And then he made a couple appearances throughout Omniverse, which I thought was great. However, as far as ice aliens goes, as much as I love him, I think Big Chill does kind of outweigh him in terms of coolness. Not a pun. But I will say that he was really cool in his debut. Again, not a pun. So for that, he gets B. Next up, we have Swampfire, the debut alien for Ben 10 Alien Force, and also the first alien that we see Ben transform into after the Omnitrix recalibrates. And now, similar to Heat Blast, Swampfire is basically the mascot for Alien Force. I mean, I loved him in his debut. It's a super nostalgic alien for me. And, you know, funnily enough, I know a couple other people have done this as well. I thought that Swampfire was like a combination of Heat Blast and Wildvine at the time. It makes no sense whatsoever, but my little kid brain thought, oh, okay, Heat Blast plus Wildvine must have created Swampfire. That makes complete sense to me. It's nonsense, but still, I think he outweighs Wildvine because he does a bit more with his plant-like biology. I think his regeneration is really cool, and I don't think that's something we really saw Wildvine do. Maybe a few instances of that in Omniverse, but I wouldn't know because I haven't seen that in too long, and I haven't finished it. So I think Swampfire does outweigh Wildvine. However, I don't think he outweighs Heat Blast. I think Heat Blast is still really cool in that regard. And in terms of fire aliens, he's one of Ben's only fire aliens, but also his coolest. So I think middle of the road between S tier and B tier, Swampfire gets A tier. Next up, we have Echo Echo, who I know a lot of people hate to hear it, but he's basically a better Ditto. I think that Ditto has a better design overall. However, I think Echo Echo is more useful. I mean, he has the sonic powers, and he also doesn't have the weakness that Ditto has in terms of physical injury. And I think that's obviously much better than what Ditto can do. But obviously, Echo Echo has the added benefit of his offensive attack with his sonic screams. His voice is also like really nice and cute, and it's just like this echoey voice. And I know that throughout Alien Force, whenever Ben would turn into Echo Echo, he would kind of be this small, cute kind of alien. I really like him, but honestly, I think he's in the same place as Ditto. I know that I just described so many things that he has on top of Ditto, but at the end of the day, they both do relatively similar things. They're both kind of smaller aliens, cuter aliens, and I think that some of the aliens above just outweigh them in terms of, you know, either design or coolness, and so, yeah, I think C tier is a good place to put him. Humongosaur. If Swampfire was to Heat Blast, then Humongosaur is to Forearms. He is Alien Force's strongest alien, and he has this really nice dinosaur design, and of course he's voiced by D. Bradley Baker, which all of the 10 Alien Force aliens are, I think, except Alien X. I believe Alien X is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, but D. Bradley Baker really carried the early portion of Ultimate Alien Force. I think after Alien Force, it became very apparent that he was voicing all the aliens. However, I think the first 10, he did a great job at distinguishing each of them, or should I say first 9. But Humongosaur is really cool. He's Ben's first like dinosaur alien if you don't count Accelerate, which I guess if Accelerate's a Velociraptor, then yeah, you should count him as the first one. But I digress. Humongosaur has the cool power of growing really big. And he's also just very strong. When he does grow big, he has like extra spikes and armor throughout his body, and that's cool. But, you know, he's just another strong alien, and I don't love strong aliens. I mean, after Forearms, you know, what do you do with them? So I'm going to give him B. Now, I haven't mentioned it yet, but starting with Alien Force, the aliens, or, you know, most of the aliens, because not every alien in the original series did this, but the aliens lost their uniforms, and basically it was explained that them even getting uniforms in the original series was a glitch, and that they are meant to be naked, which I don't like. That was retconned later to say that the no clothes explanation was actually the glitch. So, you know, we love a little bit of retconning, but I think that the retcon of the retcon was good because aliens should have uniforms. I mean, it's a staple of the franchise. Specifically, the black and white uniforms are great. I'm not a huge fan of the bright green that Omniverse went with, but at the very least, they are uniforms and they aren't naked. So there's that. But next up is Jetray. Now, Jetray is, again, not the fastest alien because that would be Accelerate, but I do think that he is Ben's fastest flyer. He's really cool in that regard, and he has this like really nice manta ray design, this bright red color scheme. He was used a lot throughout Alien Force, but then after that he kind of faded. from existence, and then he didn't even really appear in Omniverse whatsoever. I know that Derek J. Wyatt was designing him and gave him a Omniverse design after the show had finished. But yeah, that kind of legacy, you know, you kind of just fade away over the years, I think. See. Now, I know I have been pretty harsh on some of these aliens. However, next we have Big Chill, who is one of my favorite aliens. I think after Arctiguana, I was really excited to finally have a commonly used ice alien. And what better, you know, alien than a giant ice moth, you know? And I think that it was really cool how he had this kind of cloaked version and uncloaked version. And he was very Wraith-like in appearance, you know, especially in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. He was very skinny. He had this kind of ghostly appearance. And that's because, really, if you look at the original concept art, that's kind of what they were going for. They were going for a kind of Ghost Freak substitute where he was this ghost-like alien that also had ice powers. And then it kind of evolved into the cloaked kind of moth wing set that we eventually got. And I love him. I think he's really cool. I think he honestly deserves S tier for just being a super memorable alien. I mean, everyone, or mostly everyone, loves Big Chill. I know that they, you know, drastically changed his design in Omniverse, but even that's not horrible. I mean, I don't like it, but it's one of Omniverse's better designs. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, in terms of my opinions. And so I think for that reason alone, him being consistently cool, S tier for Big Chill. So Chromastone is actually a funny one because I blindly hated him when I was younger. I jokingly hate him now, but I think he's really cool. He's kind of one of my favorite aliens, but I think he has a very similar aesthetic to Diamond Head, which obviously I love Diamond Head. So I think Chromastone's really cool in that regard. However, during Alien Force, up until Season 3, obviously Ben lost all of his original aliens, and that included Diamond Head. And so then you have Chromastone, who could have been seen at the time as a Diamond Head substitute. And when you compare Chromastone to Diamond Head, I mean, it's just no competition. Diamond Head completely takes the cake. And that's why when I was younger, I really didn't like Chromastone as much, because I felt like they just kind of up and replaced Diamond Head, who was my favorite alien. But then when Alien Force eventually gave us Diamond Head in The Vengeance of Vilgax Part 2, I thought, wow, now we have Diamond Head, but now we lost Chromastone, because in order to gain the Diamond Head transformation, Ben had to lose the Chromastone transformation for a short time. And I really liked how they linked the two together, because I'm sure that at the time they had been hearing fan complaints that Chromastone was a rip-off Diamond Head. I wouldn't say he's a rip-off Diamond Head. I mean, their powers are very different, and their designs are very different, but I think it's just the crystal aspect that really throws people off when comparing the two. But as much as I want to give him A tier for just how cool some of his powers are, I mean, he can absorb energy and reflect it, and he has this really incredible, like, spatial rainbow pattern that appears whenever he uses his powers, and his crystals light up whenever he uses his powers. I think that that's really cool, but I have to go with B. He's probably one of the least liked Alien Force aliens, but I mean, again, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe everyone loves him, but I think middle of the road is good for him. All right, we have another really cool alien, Brainstorm. Now, he is another smart alien, and I believe that he is second smartest next to Gray Matter, which obviously was a retcon because Ben Victor used to be the second smartest, but now it belongs to Brainstorm, which I guess I'm okay with. You know, I think that's an okay change. We never really saw Ben Victor's, you know, intelligence used that often, if ever. And after the original series, it was kind of retconned. And so having Brainstorm be the second smart alien, I guess, is a fitting title. I think that he is really cool in design. He has this giant head that kind of opens up and reveals his exposed brain. And obviously he's based on a crab, which is cool. I think that, I could be wrong about this, but I think that Brainstorm starts the very upsetting trend of aliens having accents. He kind of has this faint British accent that D. Bradley Baker gives him. And I think that that's just a bad trend. I think that that will instantly give any alien negative points, in my opinion, because Ben said it himself during the original series. He is the one speaking through these aliens, and so they shouldn't have accents. He speaks with an American English accent. He turns into the alien. He should still have his American English accent. Even if the voice is different, it's still him speaking. No, it's how he talks. And he said it better himself in the episode. I believe it's Ben Hero Buddy Adventures, something like that. And they make a cartoon based on Ben's aliens within the universe. And I believe Forearms is played by is given a Scottish voice, and Ben complains about that because it doesn't make sense. And he's right, it doesn't make sense at all. And I think they were really self-aware about that at the time. This was a big tangent. Brainstorm gets C. Spider Monkey, I love me some Spider Monkey. I think he is a great alien. Being a big fan of Spider-Man myself, I love that Spider Monkey has very similar abilities. I know he's not like a direct reference to Spider-Man or anything, nor should he be. But I just like that, you know, they have similar powers. We don't really see Ben swing as Spider Monkey until I think Ultimate Alien, and then sometimes throughout Omniverse. But I think that he's really cool. He's very acrobatic. He's very strong, and his design is very nice. I think his design could be a bit better, but I think his original interpretation was better than the Omniverse design that we got for him. I just thought they changed it up a bit too much, specifically with his fur patterns and just how different the head shape is and the eyes are. I think they could have easily just shaken up his uniform in general and some other additions without really changing his overall physical features. But I digress. I think he's a really cool alien. I'm going to give him B. Okay, next we have Goop, who I am instantly going to put in F tier. I am not going to explain it. Just kidding. He goes in godly with Diamond Head. I love Goop. I love everything about Goop. I love his voice. I love his overall design. I think that, you know, slime or Goop related forms are really cool and interesting, and he's just aesthetically pleasing. One thing that I don't like about him, and I think similar to Brainstorm, he was the trendsetter in this regard. He is the first alien to add, I guess, equipment to the transformations, and I'm not a huge fan of that. He has the anti-gravity projector, which hangs above him at all times, and that's really his only downside. I think everything else about Goop is really cool, other than the anti-gravity projector, but he goes in godly tier with Diamond Head because he is my second favorite alien. Alright, Alien X. Alien X is the subject of much debate, because he is a godly alien. He can do anything, and he is Ben's strongest transformation by far, or should I say his most powerful by far. And I know that a lot of people don't like him for that reason. They think he's kind of a cop-out, but I think that he comes with a few built-in weaknesses that, you know, really make him an interesting transformation, and that is the two celestial bodies that Ben is forced to debate with in order to gain access to Alien X. I know it's just a humanoid alien. He's very human in that sense, and in terms of overall design and body shape. But I mean, I like him. He's a very simple alien, and similar to Goop, I think his overall aesthetic is very pleasing. He's just this black and white alien with many stars spread throughout his body, and of course he has the three-horned head to kind of represent, you know, or at least I like to see it as representing the different voices within him. He obviously has Ben and the two other celestial voices that he speaks to and debates in order to gain control over Alien X, and that's kind of his weakness, and I like that. So, as I mentioned, Goop and his aesthetically pleasingness, I am going to put him in godly, up with Diamond Head and Goop, because, I mean, these three right here, these are my three favorite aliens. Lodestar. I'm not a huge fan of Lodestar. I'm really not. I think that his design is okay, but I don't like the yellow clashing with the metal blue. I don't think it's very aesthetically pleasing, and I also don't think his overall body shape or design is that interesting. You know, I think this is one of the aliens it's really starting to show how the black and white uniform can really make a difference. And also his powers, you know, he's basically Magneto. He can control magnetism and whatnot. And then he has this floating head, which looks like just a metal head. In terms of, you know, I guess you could say he's living metal, which obviously Diamond Head is living crystal, Goop is living goop. It's fine. But I think the cons outweigh the pros in that regard, and he gets the second D tier right next to Spitter. Alright, let me tell you something, person watching this video. Wrath is a pretty sweet alien. I know that I didn't like Eye Guy for the fact that he has puns. However, I think Wrath having his own, not puns per se, but like his own catchphrase, I think that that's okay, because Wrath really is just a very unique personality. I think he's one of Ben's most unique aliens in that regard. And I think that, you know, all the aliens should still act like Ben would. I think that's like a staple of how the Omnitrix works. They are all still Ben at the end of the day. But I think Wrath, giving him some legroom to really stand out on his own and just, you know, have this very aggressive personality throughout every single appearance is very funny. Pretty much the jokes always land with Wrath. I think his design is really cool, even if he is just kind of like this alien tiger. I like him in any case. But I don't love him. I don't think I'll give him A tier. I think he goes in B, along with many other really cool aliens. You know, he stands out probably as one of the better of B tier, but I think that's a good place to put him. Alright, next is Nanomech, and Nanomech sucks. I'm sorry, he's not that good. I wanted to give him C tier because, you know, he's very small. He's smaller than gray matter, and he can fly and shoot, you know, beams of energy. But he's another one of those aliens that is, you know, artificially created, but not in a very interesting way like Upgrade was per se. He comes from the movie Alien Swarm, which was the second live-action Ben 10 movie. In that movie, especially the CGI, did no favors for him. And then when he came out in, I believe it was Ultimate Alien for his cartoon appearance, it was just not very good. I actually think Omniverse's design for him is far superior than anything that came before, but he's just not that good, and so he gets the third D tier. Next up, of course, we have Water Hazard, who in my opinion is about the second coolest of the Andromeda 5 aliens that appeared near the start of Ultimate Alien. I like him. I don't love his design. I think Omniverse, again, one of the best redesigns of that whole series was Water Hazard, because it really made him feel a lot more alien than just a guy in a kind of a costume or a metal suit. And obviously not all of his design looks like metal. It's just that in Omniverse, he really has a lot more life going on with him, and I really like that. So I think I'm going to give him B tier, because he's also one of the first water-based aliens, which water aliens are always cool, but we don't see them too often, and I think he's honestly probably one of the only water aliens, and so for that, he gets uniqueness points. He gets B tier. Alright, Amphibian. Now, Amphibian is my favorite of the Andromeda 5. I think his design is, again, very aesthetically pleasing, and I also love his powers. I believe in canon he can read minds, and he has telepathy, and that coupled with his electricity powers, I think is just really cool. Again, I'm not 100% on the mind reading thing, but again, I think he's really cool. I think he looks great. I love the colors. I mean, there's not too much else to say about him. I think, again, he's the better of the Andromeda 5. I think he has a way more unique design than any of the others, and for that, I give him A. Alright, so Armadillo is a bit of a conundrum. I know I said I don't like the robotic-looking aliens, and I think he does look a little robotic in that sense, or at least, you know, he's kind of like just a human with a suit of armor, or should I say humanoid with a suit of armor. And that's okay, I guess, but it's not really the feel of the original aliens, or, you know, many of the other aliens I've already mentioned. But he is a conundrum because while I don't like that look for him, I have yet to see an organic interpretation of his design that I like. I know there's good ones out there, but none of them I really prefer, and even my own interpretation of him is still keeping most of his canon design intact. I just give him a black and white uniform and overall change some things about his lore that kind of make him a bit more organic. But, you know, his powers rely really on his giant drills, which are a little weird. He can make earthquakes and he can dig underground and stuff like that. Not a super compelling alien. D tier. Terraspin, D tier. I'm gonna make this one short because there's not much to go on about him. I mean, he's a turtle alien, and he spins, and he has wind powers, and that's it. And he's just not that good. Okay, so energy is kind of a deal breaker for me because this is where I started to really dislike newer aliens because they all kind of followed the same theme. Or should I say, they were open to having these faults, and energy's fault is that he is a giant suit of armor. Obviously, we know that there's a being inside the suit of armor, his actual form, his true form, but I strongly dislike, as I mentioned with Echo, the fact that the Omnitrix is creating extra equipment for them. The Omnitrix creates this suit of armor for energy, and I strongly dislike that. I don't think that's in the Omnitrix's capability, because the Omnitrix breaks down, in order to make the black and white uniforms, the Omnitrix breaks down Ben's clothing, and then it recreates it in the form of a uniform using Ben's clothing. And I like that because it kept the black and white aesthetic carrying over from Ben's normal look to his aliens. But then obviously we lost the uniforms starting with Alien Force, and now we're up to Energy in Ultimate Alien, and the Omnitrix has already created Goop's anti-gravity projector, and now it's creating a giant suit of armor. And again, I just don't like that. I really don't like that. I much prefer interpretations of him where he lacks the suit of armor. You know, biased, but my own interpretation of him lacks the suit of armor, because that's something I don't think the Omnitrix should be capable of. D. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Energy also has a Russian accent. I am not a fan of that. My earlier argument about accent still stands, and I guess it just really adds to the negatives on Energy. You know, he has this giant suit of armor that the Omnitrix makes, so you never see his true form, and then he has this Russian accent, which really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then, you know, he's kind of this play on Chernobyl, and so then giving him that accent is just... it's really on the nose. I know that the writers and the creators of him think that they were clever at the time. And I mean, it is clever. It's creative. But it doesn't really fit the themes of previously established aliens, especially the ones from original series, which are the ones that I love the most. And so, you know, he just gets negative points for that. All right, Fast Track. We all know very well that Fast Track made his debut in the epic climactic battle of Ultimate Alien against Vilgax and the -10, which had reformed. It was incredible. Oh, wait, no. He appeared in a racing game. That is his debut. That is not a great debut. Fast Track is just an inferior Accelerate. I know that there are Fast Track lovers out there, and I get it. His design is sleek, and it's nice, but he's just another humanoid alien, and he does a worse job than Accelerate, and his design could really do with a black and white uniform, I think. And unfortunately, I have to give him the first F tier. It's okay, it's F for Fast Track. That's what we're gonna say it is. It's okay. Let's move on. All right, up next we have Clockwork. Now, Clockwork... another example of the giant robot aliens, but I don't think he is as bad as, say, Energy, because at least he can be written in a way... I know that it's not in canon, but it can be written in a way that he's another artificially created species, which I have done in my Omnitrix Awakened comic. And I just think that the time powers in general give him an extra edge over maybe going in D tier. I think the time powers are really cool. He'd honestly be a little higher if he didn't have the German accent, and of course, you know, German clockmakers and watchmakers and stuff like that. Again, I know that it, you know, oh, it is a smart little thing, but it just doesn't fit the franchise. In my opinion, it doesn't fit the franchise. So props to the writers for kind of making those interpretations and those references and those little, like, you know, fun facts about the aliens. But again, I don't think it fits, and I think for that he goes in C. Chameleon. He's not good. He's not good. I know Fast Track has his fans. I don't think Chameleon has many fans whatsoever. I think that he only showed up like one, maybe two times in Ultimate Alien, and that was it. He was a blip in the franchise, and I don't think his powers are that cool. He can, you know, basically turn invisible and camouflage himself. That's it. Not that great. F tier. Edel is tricky because his original design is something that I liked, kind of, at first. But then once I knew that it was actually supposed to be like an actual dung beetle type alien, and that once you start to pick apart the fact that he kind of looks like a giant robot, another humanoid robot person, the Omniverse design just really takes the cake. It makes him look really cool compared to this version, which honestly, they look like two completely different aliens at that point. But again, Omniverse takes the cake there. However, his powers in general aren't that good. He's kind of a worse Upchuck if we're really thinking about it. And then other than, you know, like the eating and the blasts, what else makes him stand out other than his design? And his design isn't even incredible or anything like that. And so really, I think for the fact that Ultimate Alien did this to us in the first place, they robbed Derek J. Wyatt of going with an actual dung beetle-like design in the first place. I think for that alone, he needs to go in F tier. All right, now we have Jury Rig, who is a worse upgrade. I'm just going to say it. He's a worse upgrade, and his design isn't that great. And then his Omniverse design also isn't that great. In fact, controversial, I know, but I prefer Jury Rig's original design, as bad as it is, compared to the Omniverse design, which I also just do not like. I like it a little bit less. Overall, Jury Rig has some bad juju going on. I'm not a huge fan of it. And then again, I mentioned his powers. His powers are he can, you know, create things out of like spare parts and stuff like that. He's a genius builder. But that's not that cool. An upgrade can already advance technology in incredible ways, and so he just feels really, really useless compared to that. So again, F tier. Moving on to the end of the Ultimate Alien Force era, we have Shock Squatch. I like Shock Squatch, but I don't love Shock Squatch, and I know that he appeared in the Heroes United crossover with Generator Rex. However, I like his design more there than I do Omniverse. They just changed it way too much. I don't think his Heroes United design is perfect. I think it had a lot to be improved on, which, I think that I did well with my design for him. However, I think that his Omniverse design is just a bit too far in the other direction, where the Heroes United design was pretty ugly and very plain, boring, and I guess I want to say clunky. And then you have the Omniverse design, which is just way too drastic of a change. It's very in your face about the fact that he has electrical powers. I mean, his whole headpiece is just this big lightning bolt type thing. It's a bit way too on the nose, so I have to go with the Heroes United design on that. However, Shock Squatch himself isn't that impressive. I think he's one of the cooler electric aliens. I know that Omniverse really liked to use him a lot for the electrical powers. But I'd say that in terms of electrical aliens, I like Amphibian and Brainstorm just so much more than him. So I gotta give him D. Alright, let's talk about feedback. Feedback was... I guess Blocks was the poster child for Omniverse in terms of advertising. But Feedback was really the mascot of Omniverse. He's, at the time, thrown in as Ben's favorite alien ever, and he has like a really interesting story that connects with Ben as a youth again when he's 11 years old, and he loses Feedback as a transformation, which then comes back around with Teen Ben in Omniverse, where he regains Feedback and he regains this large sense of confidence. And overall, I think it's a good story. I think Feedback is arguably one of the best Omniverse aliens. However, one thing I don't like about it is just how strongly it pushed it as being Ben's favorite alien, and thus, because it's Ben's favorite alien, the audience is just supposed to be completely on board with him. They really push for him to be everyone's favorite, and that's, not a downside necessarily. I think he's really cool, and he's also definitely one of the better electrical aliens. But he's just not as amazing as Omniverse would really, like to convince you that he is. Nothing against feedback. No, there's plenty of feedback lovers out there. But I think I'm going to put him in C. All right, the moment some of you have been waiting for. Where am I going to put Blocks? He goes in F immediately. He goes at the bottom of F. And now I know some of you are already typing. I know that it is a kids show, and it should be able to do this kind of thing and not, be bound to realism or real life. And I get that, and I get that argument, but I disagree. Because as Ben 10 is a science fiction franchise, and specifically I think the original series really tried to stick with the science fiction realism aspect more so than any other series, I think Blocks goes against a lot of what is pre-established within the universe, but also I think Blocks goes against audience expectations in general. The original series really set a standard for trying to make the aliens make sense within the universe. Obviously, some of them are far out there. I mean, my favorite is Diamond Head, and he's a walking, talking crystal alien. I get that. But there's a suspension of disbelief that the show presents, and it's also about execution. And Blocks is just out there. He is just presented as a giant Lego alien, a Lego gorilla, and I don't like him. He is not cool. His power is incredibly stupid. I just think that he is a stain on what Omniverse could have lived up to. Because I think if Blocks was replaced with some other cooler alien, I think I would like Omniverse, honestly, just a little bit more. But because of how much they pushed Blocks, and because of how he was the poster child on just a lot of the artwork and advertising for the series, I know that a lot of people, like myself at the time, were just completely turned off to the show because of Blocks himself. And that's unfortunate, because I think Omniverse has a lot going on for it. It's not my favorite of any of the series, but I know that there's a lot of Omniverse that works really well and adds a lot to the franchise. And it's unfortunate that things like Blocks exist, because then it just, I'm a bit more forgiving. I don't like Blocks at all, but I still like portions of Omniverse. There are people who don't like Blocks at all and will not watch Omniverse because Blocks is in it. And I think that was just poor decision making on the creator's part, because Blocks does not fit within the universe. If we're gonna go and say that energy fits, then I guess, yeah, you could say that Blocks fits. Anything's possible at that point. But things like Energy's metal suit and Edel's giant robot body really paved the way for Blocks to happen, and that's why you can start to see a pattern form over time where the aliens get less and less realistic in a show that at least originally tried to take itself seriously. And I think that's the main issue that I'm getting at. The show used to take itself seriously, and then with Blocks, it officially stopped taking itself seriously. That is the end of my Blocks rant. I am done. I'm sorry that went on so long. Let's move on to Gravitac, who complete 180 to Blocks, I will say, and is my favorite Omniverse alien. I think Gravitac is incredible. He is such a cool alien. He's a giant planetoid-like alien that can control gravity, and that's just awesome. I think he has a really cool voice in Omniverse. I think he's used well in Omniverse. Maybe underused a little bit, but again, haven't watched it in a long time. I think he was used a fair bit amount. And honestly, I could see Gravitac appearing in the original series. I can see him showing up really at any point in the franchise and being an awesome addition. And for that, S tier. Crash Hopper, Crash Hopper, Crash Hopper. I have learned to like Crash Hopper a little bit more over the years. Although I definitely didn't like him at first. I think that Crash Hopper suffers mainly from the fact that in terms of agility, there are other aliens that just do his thing way better. But in terms of power, really the only thing that makes him stand out is his jumping. And that's not really cool. I think his design is cool though. And so for that reason, instead of giving him F, I will give him D. Ball Weevil, another one of the bug aliens. I think Crash Hopper, Stinkfly, and Ball Weevil are the only bug aliens. Oh, besides Edel, who is a dung beetle. He's not good. F. His main power is spitting out like a ball that he rolls on, and then he can like kick it at people. Again, very similar in the way of Upchuck, of where he can like spit out these blasts. Ball Weevil, of course, rolls it into a ball and then kind of spits it outwards. But that's it. I think he has not a great design. Although I give him a couple points for creativity, since he's not just another humanoid alien that we saw throughout Ultimate Alien Force. He's okay, but he pales in comparison to most others. So for that, I give him F. Walkatrout, F. I mean, he's just a joke alien. He can't do anything. He's very slippery, and I think that's his main power. You could not ask me to look into him more, because I do not want to. He may have some other power that I'm just not remembering right now, but he's not that great. In terms of fish aliens, obviously Ripjaws has him beat. No competition. His design is a little cute, but he has nothing going on for him. So him, and along with Pesky Dust, I gotta go with F. Now, I will say Pesky Dust has more powers going for him. He obviously has the like knockout gas or something, and also like the weird dream manipulation ability, and that's cool. But I do not like the design. I don't like that they went with a kind of fairy design. I think that they should have went something a bit more scary for him, and then also go with like maybe a more nightmarish angle, with the nightmares or the dream manipulation. But for that, he gets F. All right, Molestache, F. And that's unfortunate, because I think that he could be pretty good, but I think the main drawback here is his design. I think that a hair power could be interesting if done well, but Molestache is just not that interesting, and seeing the mustache turn into giant fists, I think, is just so goofy and not that interesting to look at, compared to, let's say, again, original series, where maybe Gray Matter transforming was a little goofy. He's this tiny little alien. What hijinks will Ben result in this time? Compared to now, you just have a alien with a mustache that turns into weapons. Really not that cool, if I'm being honest. Alright, now we have the worst, who goes in F because he is the worst. Not as bad as Blocks, honestly, but at least Blocks has actual powers. I put Blocks as the worst based on principle, but the worst is almost just as bad. Not quite as egregious as Blocks, but at least Blocks is actually useful. The worst is just another joke alien. He serves really no purpose other than, I guess, he can't die. But I mean, okay. Kickin' Hawk is another strong fighting alien, and I mean, those are okay. But we've seen so many by this point, and I think the main issue with him that I have is his uniform. I actually was going to give him F, but seeing through the bright green uniform, I do see a lot of potential there for him to be better. And I just think, honestly, with a design change, it really could have made him stand out way more. But at the end of the day, he's just another fighting alien. He's not as strong as most other have been strong aliens, so he gets D. One thing I love about the franchise is continuity and consistency. And so when Topic was name dropped in the original Ken 10 episode, obviously many fan designs came out for his appearance over the years, because we never saw him in the original series. But then Omniverse came out, and we did finally get Topic's design, and I'm not a big fan of it. I think what we got with Topic was very interesting, and I love the fact that he can scare any species. Like, he unlocks this primal fear that exists within every single species. I think that's pretty neat. But I don't love the design, and again, I just think it's one of the things of the Omniverse's art style that doesn't appeal to me that much. I think maybe if we saw a very similar alien, but designed in the original series style, it would look a lot better. And so for that, I give him C. Alright, Astrodactyl, which is another dinosaur alien. Honestly, he's not as cool as Jet Ray or Stingfly for me, and he's like the only third other flyer. And so he obviously gets points for that taken away. And then also, he has these weird, like, gauntlet whips, that like energy whips that he can use, and to me that feels like another piece of equipment that he's given. And then also he has like a jetpack of sorts, that does not fly with me, and I really don't like him for that reason. I think overall the design is okay, but once you throw in that equipment and also the uniform, it just looks really off, and so for that, F. Alright, Bullfrag. I didn't mention it for some of the others, but some of the others have had accents, and now, obviously, Bullfrag does as well. He has this kind of Brooklyn, New York, New Jersey accent, and, I mean, the accent isn't horrendous, I guess. At least it's an American accent, I guess, you know, if I'm gonna give it some little praise. But I think that, as far as the frog species go, Gray Matter is better, but I think Bullfrag is a bit cooler. He's kind of just another fighting alien. He can't do much. He has the long tongue, which really is his most beneficial thing. I think he can stick to walls and whatnot too, and obviously he can jump really high. But I think he just edges out some of the lesser Omniverse aliens, and he actually goes up quite a bit in B tier. Nearing the end of the entire franchise's list of aliens, we have Atomics. He is in the final 3 unlocked, and he's not great. I know that Atomics, like Topic, was name-dropped in the original Ken 10 episode, but I think that, unlike Topic, he was executed even worse. And to make matters worse, he's just a Dragon Ball Z parody. That's not cool. That's not... I mean, again, it calls back to a lot of things that I said, I guess, around Ultimate Alien, where, you know, these aliens, I guess it's clever. Like, it's nice to have those references, but I don't think it belongs in Ben 10, because Ben 10 is such a unique idea on its own. It doesn't need to pull on these different franchises for references. Not that they think that it needs to, or that they're trying to do that, but even the nods to those franchises I don't think are necessary. And it really kind of deludes the uniqueness of Ben 10 if all you're seeing are references to things. And I think Atomics is one of the worst examples of that, because they really just turned what could have potentially been an alien as cool as Alien X into something that I unfortunately have to give D tier to. Now, I know that Gutrot does have an accent. However, genuinely, I think that his is one of the more tolerable ones. I mean, again, no accents, but I think Gutrot's overall design and power set just puts him a little bit above my disagreement for him having an accent. And I really like Gutrot. I think he's actually one of my favorite Omniverse aliens, my second favorite Omniverse alien, right under Gravitech. And I think that his power of like mixing chemicals in his body and like emitting them as this gas is very unique, and I really like his not rocky design, but you could tell something's like going on there with the purplish tint and the bumpy kind of design of his organic bits. And I just think that that is worthy of A. I really like him. And also, I'm a sucker for purple. He's a purple alien. Gotta give him some bonus points for that. Next, we have Vampire, which is not a good name for him. They could have come up with a dozen other names that would have been better than a Vampire. It's just Vampire and Wham, which doesn't make that much sense because, you know, Wham doesn't necessarily mean what they're trying to make it mean. You know, if some people did get it right away, a lot of people didn't, and it's just very confusing. But I don't like Vampire that much, and it sucks to end Omniverse's list of aliens on a sour note, because I think that Vampire had a lot of potential to be really cool. But again, if only Omniverse leaned into the creepiness factor that, say, the original series did with Ghost Freak and some of the other Halloween aliens. Again, he's just a vampire that can, I guess, summon these little creatures that mind control people. It's not that great, and I gotta give him D for that. And I guess that's it. That is my entire tier list of aliens, and feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I know many of you will, and I know that, you know, maybe I had some really controversial choices, but I am interested to hear what you guys think. I mean, tell me, do you love Blocks? Is Blocks your favorite alien, and you hate me now for everything I said against him? Maybe you're a Fast Track lover, and you think that he's way better than Accelerate. That is your opinion. I have given you mine. Please give me yours, and thank you for watching. But I do like him. And no, wait. I don't like him. What am I saying? I don't like him. He's going to D tier. I don't like him.